I have got a track guide for the LMP2 at Le Mans. This will be preparing for the uh, Global Endurance Series that is going to run here in I think, August 20th or something this year for the 24-hour event. So this is going to be out a couple months early. This example I'm using is qualifying run that I used for the Majors 24 this year. By no means am I lightning fast, but I hover right around a 2K iRating for what it's worth. This is more so just to introduce the track to people that have never run it before, just kind of simple brake markers, this, that, and the other. I'm going to try and fast forward through the straightaways because obviously it's just the long straightaways here, so you don't really need much explanation there. And I may refer to some of the corners by the name. It's easier than calling it a turn number just because there's so many different turns here. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and roll through this. So this is going to be coming to the start line. This first right-hander that you're going to be coming up to is just simply called Dunlop Curve, and then it's followed by Dunlop Chicanes. So you're going to get out to the left here onto the little bit of a rumble strip here. There is some texture to this, so you'll feel it in the force feedback a little bit. You're going to start your turn in a little bit before this white line that is down on the track. You can see I'm already lifting here. Not completely, but I kind of play with the throttle, and then once I make it around the bend and I have my wheel straight, kind of before this white line here, you're going to do some pretty heavy braking. I'll go down to second at first, and then I'm going to end up downshifting to first. I believe once I touch the first side curb here, you can get pretty far out to the right here. I don't get up on that curb, but downshift to first, and you can try and eliminate as much of this as possible, but you can get up onto this curb quite a bit on the left side, just avoid the yellow bumps here. And then same here on the right side. You want to get a lot of the car across the curbing, but you don't want to touch the yellow strips. And then you can exit out pretty wide. You just have to be careful on exiting too wide, or else you will get a slowdown penalty. You're not going to rack up a ton of incidents on this track, but you may get some just slowdowns where you have to give up some time. I don't know what the actual rule is here for where it gives you a slowdown, but I think if you get your right sides off of the rumble strip here, so if you get too far out into like these here, then you're out too far. You're going to be flat out through this section. Flat out all the way to here, where the pavement changes color is a pretty good reference point for you to brake. So brake, I'm going to go down one gear to third. You can get onto the curb a little bit here, but be careful to not take too much. If you try and get into the throttle here too much, or you take too much curb, the car will kind of push to the right and it'll just mess up your entry for the next turn. Same here, you can get on the curb a little bit. If you're on the curb when you exit here, though, there is a little bit of a drop, so it could unsteady the car a little bit. Just be wary of that. Alright, this turn is tricky. When you hit it right, it feels great, and when you don't hit it right, you're probably going to get a slowdown. So my reference that I use here, I leave it in fourth gear here. I don't think I go down to third. Yeah, I'm in fourth gear here. See? So this white line, this light that's off to the left, is a good reference. So I am lifting, and there may be a little bit of light braking as I pass over this, or by it. So here, you can see I'm already lifting out the throttle and ever so slightly braking. So out of the throttle, here you want to get up onto this curb as much as possible, but you definitely need to avoid these little yellow bumps on the inside. And then you're going to exit, get into the power hard. Now you can exit out across onto this blue section without it being a slowdown. Where it triggers a slowdown is going to be if you don't have your car back onto the track before you exit here. And it might be the left sides can't be on the blue. You cross off of it. But this turn's very tricky to carry all the speed and get back into the throttle and not get a slowdown. Obviously, when you're a higher I rating and more skilled, you become more accustomed to it and get more comfortable with it. But this turn is pretty tricky in terms of turns on this track. It's also referred to as Tertre Rouge, I believe, is the fancy name that they give it here. Onto main straightaway here. Very important that you know this right here. There is a KFC. You get onto the main straight here. It's very important. One of the exciting parts about the track. I'm gonna jump up here towards the end of this straightaway. I think this chicane is now called the Daytona Chicane after last year. Them and Daytona International exchange of aiming a turn on the track. I think the first chicane is now considered Daytona Chicane, but people also just call it first chicane or something like that. So I'm looking at braking markers here on the wall. 300 doesn't really matter. It's the 200 one I'm looking for. Actually, past the 200, you'll see this yellow at the end of the wall where this wall is coming to an end. That is a pretty good reference mark. So heavy braking zone here, you're going to go down to second gear. Do your turning, get your right sides onto the blue and yellow curbing here. Still second gear. Same here, you can get pretty far on the inside. If you cut it too far to the inside though, it's going to give you a slowdown. Just be wary of that, but you can see that I'm using a lot. Pretty much left sides as far left on possible. Alright, back into the power. It's just back into the power. You don't want to, you want to try and kind of keep it off the curb here a little bit. If you go too far to the right, it'll just make the car steady. So fast forward here, long straightaway, same deal. You're going to look for these brake signs. So for this turn, it's kind of between the 200 and the 100 here. So I used to use this little bend here in the guardrail as a reference, but you can kind of go a little bit. Sorry, my microphone died in the middle of that. But yeah, I used to use this little curve in the guardrail here. That is not what I use anymore, because it's a little bit past that. Kind of where the light and the dark transitions here. At nighttime, there's actually a reflector that's on the wall here between the two that actually works. To the right of this dotted line is a different texture, and I think it's a little bit elevated, so you will feel it. You want to kind of stay to the left of it here. Heavy braking. So I'm in third gear here. It's not until I clip the first apex that I think I downshift to second, but you can get on the curb quite a bit, and you can actually jump over the curb a little bit. Set yourself up for better entrance into the chicane, but same thing here. Just get up onto the curves, but don't jump over it. Then back into the power. Alright. Fast forwarded quite a bit here. So this turn here is called Mulsanne, I believe. The entire straight is called Mulsanne Straight, and then the end is Mulsanne. So there is this cone here and the 100 board. During the race, you're going to find that people are hitting this cone, so it may not be there all the time. So you don't want to use that as a reference because it may or may not be there when you're ready to use it. And you're going to be carrying a lot of speed on this corner, and then there is a wall at the very end of this. So you want to make sure that you are prepared to hit your braking marker here. So the reference I actually use, and this is going pretty far, is the end of this dotted line. You can see before I get there, I'm already aiming for the curb here. So I'm going to aim for the curb here, and then I'm going to angle out towards, there's an orange cone up here that I'm kind of going to angle towards. So it's kind of right before I get to that yellow line. The end of the white is, you can see I'm already out of the throttle here, and I'm about to start my heavy braking. So really heavy braking here, angle out towards the orange cone. I think you can even get out and touch it. You're going to go down to first gear here. And then you're going to cut to the inside really far. I think you can actually go through these green cones a little bit without it being a slowdown. But you want to definitely be at least on the blue and yellow curbing. And then you're going to ease into the power here and use the complete runoff. You go up over the curbing here, out onto the sand for obvious reasons. Another long straight. Alright. So 200 board, 100 board, and there's actually this little green section that is here. If you get too far to the left here, it's going to give you a slowdown, so you kind of keep it to the right of this dotted line, but I use this green section here as a reference. This is going to be kind of what your comfort level is. This turn is extremely high speed. This is going to be, I don't think the right-handers considered it, but the left-hander after this is called Indianapolis. But as I'm hitting this section, I think when I'm feeling more confident, it's when you hit the end of the green section. But at the start of it is fair. So you can see I'm still 100% throttle here. I apply a little bit of brake here and get it completely out of the throttle to kind of let it drift around this bend here. And then when I get around the bend and I'm heading in a relatively straight line is when I go heavier braking. But the entire time I'm on the brake to some extent and I'm not in the throttle. Again, when your results may vary, you may find that you can be in the throttle a little bit, but again, if you carry too much speed, you're going, think 200 miles an hour leading into this. So if you miss this, and it's very easy to get the car unsteady here and lose control or lock them up and go into this wall. So you just want to be confident in your braking and don't miss the braking marker. You're going to go down to second gear here. I'm going to aim for the blue and yellow curb here to the inside. I think I nudge it here. You can get onto it a little bit, but don't take too much. We're going to power down. I'm full throttle here and exit out to the right. Blue and yellow curbing. Exit all the way out onto that. So the next thing I'm looking at is there's this white line. There's the 50 board. So a little bit after this white line is where I'm going to brake, right about there. So it's kind of between the white line and the 50 board. I'm going to go down to first gear here. Yeah. Beyond the curbing here, and then when you hit the end of this blue and yellow curve is kind of where I do my turn in. Get onto the blue and yellow curve. I will tell you this is probably one of the few turns where I personally rack up. If I'm going to rack up an incident point for an off track, it's going to be here on the exit. But yeah, exit out, left sides, don't let them go across the blue and yellow curb, I think that's when it triggers the off tracks when you get to the left side of that with the sides. But power down. That turn for reference was called Arnage. And now we're gonna head into like the actual more technical part of the track. So for starters, this first set of curves is Porsche Curves. Probably one of the more intimidating sections of turn and in class racing. The death sentence if you try and pass somebody here usually, so you just kind of gotta be patient and work your way. But you're gonna get your left sides. You're pretty far left. I think you can actually jump across here. But at the start of this green section is where I personally use as a brake marker. I go from 6th gear down to 5th. I think some people may go to 4th. I think 5th is more ideal. Obviously, it's going to be setup dependent. Kind of moderate braking. Get the car to rotate, and then you're going to get the power down. You're going to get back to the right. Now this section, you could take it at full speed, but if you mess it up or clip a curb too much or something, you're going to put it into the right side wall. You're going to cause some pretty significant damage, so you may want to lift a little bit until you're more confident with it. So 5th gear here. If I do my turn in, I'm kind of feathering the throttle here because I want to stay to the left, kind of on this curbing a little bit. Yeah, I'm kind of down to half throttle here. I get my wheel straight, I'm kind of backing the throttle a little bit, and then I'm going to do some heavier braking. It's not really that heavy. I peaked it, I think, about 50% pressure. Try and keep it to the right here. I've seen people take a little bit more of an arc here. The past. Again, I'm not setting any world here. That's just what I do. This turn coming up here is going to be... this is still the exit, I guess, of Porsche Curves, technically, and then the next section is Corvette Curves, which is flat out. But it's tricky. It's as you're going around this bend, I guess kind of where the white line straightens out is where you're going to flick it back to the left. Staying in 4th gear here. I mean, you can kind of see my throttle trace, so I'm about 50 to 70% throttle here. And as I'm going to flick it back to the left, I'm out of the throttle completely in a very minuscule amount of brake. And then I'm going to get back into the power. You want to get lefts as far left as possible without touching the yellow. You're going to carry a lot of speed through here. This is, you're not going to get an off track here, but you'll get a... Sorry, my headset decides it wants to keep turning off. But you're going to get some slowdowns here. And it's honestly safest to just wait until you at the past the final chicanes and just slow down to the right afterward. But if you're not back onto the track completely before the end of this curbing here, it is going to be a slowdown. But there's a lot of time to be made up here, so we're going to experiment. Corvette Curves here, and then we're going to head to the final section, which is chicanes. So my marker I'm using here is kind of halfway. This pit entry here, about halfway through it is where I'm going to start my braking. I'm going to kind of veer onto the pit entry a little bit, and I will kind of get the right sides across the yellow curbing here. Not heavy braking here, but pretty pretty decent braking. Just a high speed initial first couple turns of the chicanes, and it slows down as you progress through it. So braking here, right sides, like I said, are probably touching the yellow. I go down to third. Aim to kind of, this isn't really here, so you can aim to scrape this, I would say. The white and red thing, left side. I actually kind of jobble, not even a word. Jostle this a little bit. I wanted to turn in slightly later to catch the same thing here, kind of act like your right sides are going to scrape this. I go down to second gear. And then get back to the right side. Not completely into throttle here, and then kind of where this blue and yellow curb here is going to do your braking. Go down to first gear. Aim to get your left sides across the blue and yellow curb here. You want to avoid getting them too far over because you can see there's a dip here to the green section. And then on the curb, the next curb, you want to completely avoid the sausage curb. That will unsteady the car a significant amount. So you can see how much I'm using here. That camera. And then get your right sides on there, but don't touch the sausage curb. And exit out to the right. You can exit out onto the green section, but just don't get onto the dirt. Now I'm going to let this next lap play by at speed. This is my fastest of the session. Don't really worry about the speeds here or anything like that. It takes some laps to get comfortable with it. This was kind of specific weather, and it was using a qualifying setup, so lighter fuel. So if your lap times aren't quite this, or maybe they're faster, I just don't really pay much attention to that. So again, you're going to get out to the left side here. Look for that white line. Second, down to first here. Makes it out pretty wide. Going to be flat out through this section. Then when the pavement changes color, you're going to brake and go down to third. Fresh tires. This is a flat out section here. I was going to let it play through at full speed, so this was not a slowdown, but this was probably as close as you could cut it without it being. So you can see how close it is. Any further to the left there, I think that would have been a slowdown. For this. Alright. 200 board in the end of that wall. While you're heavy braking in a straight line. Second gear. Curves. Alright. 200 board. Guardrail. Gray and darker section is. I go down to second gear earlier there. I'm kind of inconsistent with that, but power down. Kind of the end of the white lines. Go down arc, but cut it in sharp. Exit out wide. Section here. Brake. Second gear. After the white line on the track, but gear. Porsche Curves. Start of this green section. 5th gear. Try and keep it to the inside here, but you can exit the mid track right out through. Confidence. Row is do it more and more. Go with the pit road. Here, down to 2nd, down to 1st. Alright. But hopefully it helps you out.